guys? Tambo here with your Week 4 core report. Our cores have been on fire this season, and our guy Hoop nailed the Week 4 strategy, stacking up the Lions and Seahawks game. Hoop went cheap at quarterback, rostering Geno Smith with the double stack of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He then went full onslaught for the game by adding Jamal Williams, TJ Hawkinson, and Josh Reynolds from the Detroit side. Hoop topped off his lineup with several one-offs, including Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, and the Eagles D, racking up a score of 252 DraftKings points with a unique lineup that actually took out a 33-man dupe train, shipping the Hoopster $1 million in the Week 4 Millie Maker. Several of the players from Hoop's lineup appeared in his core plays and cash player pool provided to our premium members, who also had some pretty big weeks. MC won over 3K on DraftKings, Raholman hit for over 5K, Nika hit for over 6K, and Chase Addy NC shipped for over $45,000 on FanDuel. And Hoop isn't the only expert to hit big recently. JT Hayes hit for $20,000 in MLB last week. BigT hit once again, profiting over $33,000 on the NFL Week 4 afternoon slate. And our guy Locks had a huge night, shipping for over $213,000 on the Sunday Night Showdown slate. You can watch all of our experts for free by visiting our YouTube channel and subscribing right now. For our premium content, where you can access all of our core plays, playbook, Discord, premium videos, and more, visit runpuresports.com and sign up for a membership today. At RPS, every sport is included for one low price. Sign up for our premium membership today, and let's keep running pure.
What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Run Pure Sports, bringing to you once again every Thursday the lineup building show with our partners SaberSim. I am here with my guy Jordan. Jordan, what is going on, my man? These weeks are flying by. How's your week going so far?
It's good. Yeah, man. Thursday here again. We got another game tonight. It's kind of an interesting one in front of us here tonight. When I was looking earlier this week at this game, it wasn't one that I was looking at that I was super excited about. But now that we've got the injury situation for both teams, I feel like there's a lot of interesting builds that you can make with these two teams tonight. A lot of value has opened up, a lot of kind of murky situations. So I'm pretty excited for this one now. I think it's going to be fun to break down.
I am too. And here's the thing, like, we're coming off a really incredible Sunday, obviously, with Hoopster winning $1 million using SaberSim. It was crazy. I was having a conversation with Hoop, and he was talking about how he's using SaberSim and how he wanted to go in there and delete a bunch of different stack types. If you're, if you're a regular on the show, you know what we're talking about. If you're not, you'll learn here shortly. We'll show you the stack types and everything. But I was talking to Hoopster, and he was like, "Yeah, normally I would have deleted the overstacking in that game," but he's like, that game was popping so good, he decided to leave it, and that's what won. It was a full onslaught stack of the Lions game, and awesome stuff from him. And then we followed it up. Actually, our guy Locks, he took down the Showdown slate on Sunday night, and then we had a bunch of winners on Monday. So Showdown is so fun. It's like so underrated. And what we got a milli up top tonight. But what people, I think, are discounting a little bit is with a milli up top, even if you're chopping with a bunch of people, your return is still nice. Like, it's still definitely fine. So I know the great debate between, uniques versus no uniques. Obviously, we want to all solo ship the milli. Obviously, we all understand the value of a lineup that is unique. However, the industry is very sharp right now. Projections are very good. There's a lot of awesome tools like SaberSim. We think SaberSim's tool is the best optimizer out there. I don't think you can just, ignore some of these really optimal spots like we had on Monday night with Cooper Kupp. It was just a very obvious, captain spot. Anyways, I digress. We got a milli up top tonight. And yeah, I mean, it would be cooler if we chop it with like 15 people or solo ship, obviously. But and actually, Jordan, that could be the case tonight because tonight's game is really interesting. Obviously, Broncos, in the Colts, there's a lot of injury stuff that we got to dive into. So, I mean, we could ramble on and on, or at least I could. Let's dive in and so how we do it each and every week. We're going to start off covering Showdown. I kind of think that we're probably not going to get to the main slate because I think this is one of the more interesting Showdown slates, even though a lot of people aren't excited for the game. I am. It's football. It's Thursday. Baseball. There's no baseball tonight. So, I mean, there's nothing better to do. So how we do it each and every week, we're going to go through a base build. And Jordan, so we were talking before the show. Talk to us about what we're going to do a little bit different this week, which I think is very sharp. A sharp change that we're making to this base Saber build.
Yeah. I mean, first off, if you guys are watching, you want more main slate content, let me know in the SaberSim channel. I'm happy to talk more main slates. There isn't a game with a total over 50, at least last time I checked, for the main slate anyway this week. So maybe a good chance to do the Thursday night football anyway here today. But yeah, let's jump into this. So we'll start running some builds. I always recommend anyone sitting down to start building lineups with SaberSim for the first time. Always start with just what AP is calling a base build here, which is just basically going to be default settings. You just build your lineups. The reason why this is so useful on SaberSim is because we have these game sims. So you're actually building, when you do this for Showdown, you're going to be building optimal lineups for certain single game simulation outcomes. But before we jump into that, that's normally what we do. I want to actually do a little bit of a different first build today. What I want to do is I want to start with just seeing what the top 500 cash optimals are. So we're going to build 500 lineups. We're just going to use the average projections. Basically what we're going to mimic here is like what anybody would see if they just sat down with any other optimizer and said, build me some lineups, and just started building tonight. And I think this is cool for just kind of getting an idea of like, what's the field going to do? What are the constructions that are going to be really popular? The way I always think about this is anyone using a normal, like traditional optimizer, they're going to have to work to get off of these plays, right? Like the optimizer is going to want to put these kinds of constructions and these kinds of plays in so bad because they just project so well on average that they're going to have to really do a lot to try to get off them, which means they're probably going to be pretty popular construction. So I just kind of want to go through and just start looking at this. I mean, one thing that pops immediately, right? First 500 cash, you have like 3 captains here that are taking up a ton of the exposure in these top 500. Sutton, Hines, Russell Wilson look like, and I mean, it's worth noting, Hines only projecting at 8% captain ownership, but he's popping in these captain optimals. I think he could be a pretty popular play here. And you can also go ahead and see where like people maybe won't get to, right? Maybe Melvin Gordon's going to be a guy that there's a little bit of an opportunity here that the field is actually maybe going to ignore a little bit relative to his price. So anything you want to add on to that, AP, before I want to talk about the stacks a little bit too, but any thoughts there?
I do think this is the right. So like if you follow my articles I do for every Showdown slate, I'm going to start with, I always lay out the base build in there. I always take screenshots, post it in there so that everyone can see. I'm going to start doing it like this because it's a lot better. We want to know where the cash pros are at, where the optimal on paper lineup is at, so that we can figure out how we're going to get it different in tournaments. So I love that you brought this up, something that I'm going to implement in my process as well. And tonight's interesting. I mean, right off the gate, like I have a different script in mind that I feel for this game. Everyone is on kind of a brutal game, which Thursdays, usually that's what we get. 2 teams without, 2 key players, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, obviously, but there's some key defensive injuries as well. Like PJ Locke, stud safety for the Broncos. He's obviously got hurt like on the opening play against the Raiders, and that made a huge, had a huge impact on the defense there. But I kind of am interested in an overscript for this slate. But I think I'm going to be fine getting off some chalks because I'm looking at Philip Lindsay right there. I think people are going to fall in love with the little revenge narrative, which, is going to be hilarious. And the fact that he's 600, he's naturally going to just pop in a ton of builds. So I think there's going to be really easy ways to get different on the slate tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, one thing to look out for, obviously, is a lot of uncertainty here. If we get some idea that Lindsey's going to be legit starter here tonight and like this projection is 13 by the time we actually go into lock. Obviously, he's going to pop in way more optimals at that point. And it'd be a good idea to run this, again, right before lock. I also wanted to go ahead here and look just at the constructions. I think this can also be useful for that. You see here in the top optimals, almost half of them are taken up with these 4-2 constructions here. Another 40% with the 3-3. Not a lot of cash optimals with the 5-1 stack. And if we go a little bit further here, as I think people might be able to guess, it's going to be very overweight to the Broncos side of this. They're favored in this game.
Jordan, do one thing for me. The Saber score, just to make it even more of a cash optimal type thing. Yeah, change it to projected score there, because I think that there you go. So really interesting, Melvin Gordon captain, probably a price type of thing. Russ Wilson. So double quarterback, double running back, and no kickers in there, no defenses, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be where people get to tonight. Like with Hines and Melvin Gordon soaking up so much of the usage there. There's a lot of cheap value as well. Like makes it pretty easy to get to Russ Wilson, Cortland Sutton, some of the better expensive plays here. So I think, I've talked about doing this before, just looking at the spread and the total and kind of trying to guesstimate it. But I think this can be a more I guess kind of scientific way of going through and figuring out what are going to be the popular constructions. So anything else you want to look at here, or I think we should move on to our build.
No, yeah, let's go back to that home step one. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. We already got a lot of people in the chat. We appreciate all of you. We got people already asking about our guy, Big T. Big T is not on this show. I'm not Big T. Jordan's not Big T, but Big T will be on the Print Factory coming up later this afternoon. I believe they're going at 4:30 today. That is Tambo, JSU, and Big T. So make sure to catch that show. I believe it's premium today. Simon, you can correct me if not, but I do believe it's premium. So if you're a member, make sure to catch that show 4:30, I believe.
Perfect. Cool. Let's go ahead.
Let's dive in here. What kind of script are you feeling? I think so. Like, here's how I see this game going. This Colts team kind of in shambles right now. Denver, obviously coming off a loss, but they have very, very much underwhelmed. We got Jonathan Taylor out on the Colts side, and he's been struggling. This offensive line for the Colts has been really bad. And on the Denver side, Melvin Gordon's been terrible. Like, the guy can't hold onto the football. So we're lacking running backs, and what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of cheap running backs that are just going to naturally pop. We already saw it in the optimal build. 2 running backs were fitting in there, and that makes sense. Like I commonly think of it, like people like to think of it like NBA. When a guy gets hurt, obviously that bumps up the value of another player. However, it's so much different in football. Like, I don't think it's a like kind thing. It's definitely not apples to apples when you're talking NFL versus NBA. So what I see going on here, and where I think the value is in the receivers. We have 2 quarterbacks, whether they're dusty or not. Matt Ryan definitely a little bit more dusty. Russ looking dusty. However, think back to before the season started, everyone was very high on Russ. Everyone was very high on Denver, and so I think we're going to see them air it out a little bit more here. I think. Matt Ryan coming off a 356-yard game, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mo Alley Cox got involved. They've been running a lot of double tight end sets. They still have Michael Pittman, absolute stud. And then when you think about the Denver side, you got Cortland Sutton, you got Jerry Jeudy, a lot of playmakers here. And so my script I'm looking at, Jordan, is under on the running backs, maybe fading them, and higher on our playmakers, higher on our kickers. And then scripts like this too, I think, I'm debating back and forth defenses. I think if we have more throwing, more passing, that the opportunity for interceptions, the opportunity for a pick six will also increase too. So I'm not going to completely ignore defenses. I do think this is a slate where they're going to end up more popular. And so I don't want to be so natural. I'd want to fade them. I think what I'm going to do is set a rule or a group that just says I can only play one defense in any build. And I'm not worried about playing a defense against a quarterback either. So that's kind of the script I see playing. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, I love it. I think we're kind of on the same page there. I mean, I think there's really we just ran that cash build to just see what's popping in the cash optimals, and I think there were two names that I think are going to be going a little under owned tonight in the captain spot, and they both lead towards a more pass heavy script, and that's Jerry Jeudy, where I think a lot of people are going to be on Cortland Sutton. Judy's already flashed the upside this year already once. It's been Sutton getting a little bit more of the target share there, but Jeudy can clearly break one. Pittman, almost forgot his name for a second. I feel like weirdly Pittman's going to go a little overlooked with Hines getting a lot of ownership tonight. People spending a lot more time on the Denver guys. It seems like obviously with Jonathan Taylor out, the Colts would want to lean on their next best playmaker on the field a little bit more. And it just seems like it's going to be a spot where people don't really get to that easy. So I think that naturally takes me to more of a passing kind of game script. So I think I'm on the same page there.
One thing to add too, we talk about this a lot. Like think back to the Rams game. One thing that was really nice about that game is we knew exactly where the target share was going to go. We know on the Rams it's Tyler Higbee and it's Cooper Kupp, and there's no one else. I mean, their running game can get involved, but not against the 49ers. So we knew exactly where the target share was going to be. We know with Denver now that it's kind of the same script. It's Cortland Sutton, it's Jerry Jeudy. Their tight ends have been an absolute disaster. Melvin Gordon, terrible. And then it's Mike Boone or Latavius Murray. I mean, are you kidding me? The only guys I have interest in right now for Denver, and Denver's favored in this game, projected to win, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy with you, play them together, Russ Wilson, and their defense and their kicker. That's the only guys I have much interest in at all. I think I would almost be fine fading everyone else or being very under on everyone else. So let's take a look at the builds. I believe we're in step 3 here. Walk us through what we're looking at, Jordan.
Yeah, so this is, again, this is basically what test build, right? Our first build that we're running here. We're looking at single game simulation optimals. We have 1,500, and we're trying to narrow down to 50. And I think it's a good idea always before you start, we're talking about some rules, talking about some game scripts. Before you start making a lot of adjustments, start with this base build and just kind of see what's coming out on the other side. And from there, I like to think about this kind of like biggest picture first before I get narrowed down more into player exposures or actual individual lineups. So I like to start and just kind of look at my stack types, and I'll basically just kind of start experimenting here. And one thing that I noticed in that cash build, and I'm curious, AP, your thoughts on this, but one construction that I just particularly kind of want to get away from here is the Denver 4-2. It just seems like it's going to be really popular. I don't mind playing Denver 5 stacks. I don't mind playing the more balanced build tonight, but it just seems like those Denver 4-2 builds were popping like crazy in the cash build. Seems like a really easy way to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, you definitely could. I think so. I'm kind of torn in doing that. I know I started off the season by always eliminating 3-3 stacks.
Yeah,
which I think is fine. But so like why I'm torn on that, Jordan, is like I think we have a good idea of where the production is going to come from tonight, and so I don't necessarily, and I really like how those Denver 4-2s could look. Russ Wilson, Sutton, like we talked about, Jeudy, and then
like
a kicker,
right over here,
for example. Yeah, I think what I would eliminate is like any 4-2s with a running back, any 4-2s with a Denver tight end. You know what I mean? So I'm really focusing on the 4-2s with the playmakers and a kicker or a defense. And then on the other side too, like this slate, it kind of feels, maybe easy for me. I'm really, excited to hear what the Print Factory fellas have to say too, because I could be kind of on my own island. But when I look at Indy, it's Nyheim, it's Hines, and it's Pittman for me, and then the tight ends. I think Alec Pierce is fine too. He had some nice catches last week, but I think it's going to be, so we were talking before the show too, our boy Simon, producer behind the scenes, very high on Hines as well. Like I'm just, if Philip Lindsay beats me, he beats me. If Deion Jackson beats me, he beats me. I don't know if we're going to see enough production from those guys. I do think we could get the dump offs from Hines, which makes him a really nice optimal play. And then Pittman, he's just an absolute stud. So we know where the target share is going to be, and I just want to lock on those plays. So we're looking at these builds. How much Hines are we getting? How much Pittman are we getting? Because it doesn't look like in the captain spot we're getting much of them at all.
Yeah, so I mean, we are getting a lot of Hines. We're definitely our highest owned captain here with just the top 50.
Okay, so he's going to be the chalk captain, probably.
I think so. Yeah, Pittman almost none, very little, and I think that projection on our end might come up a little bit throughout the day as well. I think we're a little low on him right now, but it does seem like a spot that SaberSim just right out of the gate is trying to fade there. So I'm probably going to try to get some exposure to him. I mean, I think honestly, maybe, it sounds like we've got a pretty good idea of how we want to attack this slate. Maybe it actually just makes sense to go back to the home screen here and actually just start putting some of these adjustments in.
Yeah, let's do, now you're talking. Now you're talking. What I like to do. So
let's do it.
If you're new to the show, I Jordan likes to make the more adjustments in step 3, which I do too. But I definitely like to make more adjustments in step 1 just to add some personal bias to it. So let's just let's do this. Let's bump up those players that we talked about that we like, where we know the target share is going to be. So Cortland Sutton on the Denver side, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and we like Russ. So let's give them a couple bumps. And then, maybe if it's easy, bump down. Let's bump down just those cheap running backs that keep popping in there. I want to see what these builds look like, and not Hines. Hines we keep the same, but so it would be Melvin Gordon, Mike Boone, and then Phillip Lindsay and Dean Jackson.
Perfect. Cool.
And then let's give Michael Pittman a bump.
Let's find him. There he is.
Yeah, I like that. And then, kickers. Did we get much kickers? Because
they were popping up a little bit.
Okay,
maybe we can give them at least like a little.
I don't know if it's a 2 kicker type of night. Like
really,
it feels like a 1 kicker. Yeah, 1 kicker type of night. But yeah, I think that's a good script right there.
And you had mentioned some rules that you were playing with here. I'll clear these ones out. These were from last week. Do you want to put any rules in here to limit some of this?
Yeah, let's say only 1 defense per build. So how would you put that in if you wanted to? I think I made it a little bit when I was making my rules for the main slate this week. I think I went the long way around it, but I ended up getting there, so it was fine.
For Showdown, since it's just 1 game, I typically am just sticking more with these manual rules where I just put the exact players in and put the exact logic that I want. So in this case, we could just put both defenses at captain, both defenses at flex, and just say no more than one of these guys. I think that's the easiest way.
Okay.
Cool. Any others? You want to throw any others in here?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do you have any off the top of your head?
Based on the script that we were playing, I kind of think an interesting angle here would be to just say maybe just one running back in the game.
I like it. That's what I was going to say. One running back, or a way to limit our running backs. We don't want to completely fade them. We just don't want multiple running backs in our builds. I like that.
So let's go ahead and just add the running backs in here. So one thing, you want to make sure you do this at captain and flex, obviously.
So so you're creating a group and you are just adding them captains and flex, the player names, all the running backs, and you're saying no more than 1. And it's as easy as that. Okay, Perfect.
That'll do it. So we have both of those in now. I think maybe we run another build and see if we get a little bit closer to the game script here.
Yeah, let's do it.
And this is the right way to think about using SaberSim, right? Is I always talk about it every week, this kind of iteration process where we run a build, we see what we're getting, we put a few things in there where we want to change, we run another build, right? It doesn't need to all get perfect in one build. It doesn't need to all get perfect with all 1 round of changes. This is the right way to think about it here. And you can be doing this while you're watching the shows, right? You're watching the Print Factory show, you're listening to Big T's angle. Maybe you're making some adjustments based on that, running a build, seeing what's coming out on the other side and going from there.
Yeah, and you can disagree with us too. You might not agree with the game script that we're running, and that's perfectly fine. But use take this and just learn from the process which we're going through right now and apply it to the game script that you think is going to map out. I just think with showdowns, one of the most important things is to come up with a game script that you see playing out. And I like these games where I think things might be a little bit more obvious than we all think, like when you from a target share standpoint. So if anyone's out there and you're going to read my article, it'll probably look pretty similar to this because I really like how these builds look. Because I could just see Nyheim Hines getting a bunch of dump offs. If the Broncos take the lead, I think it's going to be a Sutton touchdown, Jerry Jeudy. I think they have to do it through the air, or it's going to be like a defensive touchdown, or their kicker is going to go off, and then we're going to be in a script where the Colts have just struggled on the ground. Like now they don't have Jonathan Taylor. I mean, I can't see them improving from a rushing standpoint, but Hines is a dynamic player out of the backfield. He's going to get dump offs. So in PPR format, DraftKings, it's really nice. So that first build there looks like, if I was playing cash, I'd play something like that. I would look very, very similar to what I'd run, but I don't play cash. But that looks like a really interesting build right there.
So I mean, what are some of the things? Where do you start to look first after this kind of next build? So we've made some adjustments here. Do you want to look at like captain exposures or go back to the constructions? Or what do you think?
One thing I think that's going to be really important tonight is we want a small captain pool. So right now we have 15. I ideally would like 3 to 4 at max on tonight's slate. And I want to focus on those guys that we talked about: Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Hines, and then I think maybe Pittman.
Cool.
I don't know if there's going to be enough scoring to justify a quarterback being in the captain. So I think we can eliminate quarterbacks from being in the captain. And then these cheap random plays, I think, are going to be more popular in the captain spot, because everyone's going to try to fit in all of these playmakers. And so I would look at eliminating those. So I would just bring in the playmakers, and I think that's where I would start. And then what I would also do is I would look at stack types, and then I would look at my team stacks to get an idea from a 4-2 or 5-1 perspective, if I'm heavy Denver or if I'm heavy Indy. That's kind of where I would be at. I don't like it off the surface. It doesn't. So like for a 5-1 to win out tonight, I do think it would be a Denver 5-1, and it would be a total onslaught. It would be like what we saw the Colts, like when they played the Jags, that performance there where Matt Ryan threw 3 interceptions where they got shut out. That would be like a 5-1 scenario. I just don't see that happening. I know they had like some rah-rah meetings, like player only meetings this week, and they're trying to get, they do have some veterans on that team. So maybe they play a little bit more inspired, who knows? But I think it's a 4-2 type of night. So that's where my focus is going to be. And I don't think I'm going to zero out any like the 3-3s like I have in the past, or the 5-1s. I don't know. It just depends. Like, what are you seeing when you're looking at stack types here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I think just based on that initial cash build, I think that the 4-2s are just going to be pretty popular. Like, I think I'm probably going to end up playing more to the angle that either team just ends up dominating this game, or the 3-3 stack is a little bit more viable. It seems like tonight, just based on how things are shaking up, that 4-2 is going to be popular. But on the flip side, there is such a big player pool tonight. There are so many players that are viable, especially like just in the flex position, that I don't think we have to worry as much as we have in some of these past slates about getting different, just because there are so many. I mean, that's a factor that people I don't think really appreciate enough when they're talking about NFL Showdown, is the more players in the player pool there are that are viable on that night that actually have a legitimate projection, the less you need to worry about dupes, period, just because there's more combinations. So I think tonight I maybe will not be as focused on trying to get off the board there. I'm fine with these constructions.
One other thing that you could do is, so we know the Colts love to run these double tight end sets. You could really lower the projection or eliminate or remove from the player pool like the Denver tight ends. They've been a complete disaster, but you could put Mo Alley Cox in there, maybe bump him. Granson, you could maybe give him a bump. Those would be the two. Just when you're looking at snaps, so 67% last week to Mo Alley Cox. He had a monster game. And I've always liked running tight ends against the Broncos, just with what they want to do from a defensive standpoint. And, just without PJ Locke, there. They do still have Patrick Surtain and Ronald Darby, so two elite cover corners there. So that's why people might shy away from like a Michael Pittman. But then the other guy, Alec Pierce, he was one catch away from having a monster game last week. He looks pretty good, like a 6'3" rookie, almost tight end type of frame, type of playmaker. So he would be a guy that I would give a slight bump to as well. On the Indy side. And so like what I'm getting at is I agree with you. There's so many names and so many options. And so like what I want to do, since I'm not running 150, I'll probably run, 60 to 75. That's kind of where I'm feeling tonight. What I want to do is really condense some of my player pool so that I'm focused on that combination. So 3 to 4 captains, eliminating some of these random guys that like the Denver tight ends that I'm just never going to play. Being lower on Phillip Lindsay, Deion Jackson, etc. I think is going to be kind of the route that I am on. How does this? So we're running 50 builds right here. How many? Yeah. So we're getting 38% Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and we're getting only Michael Pittman's going to be pretty low owned in the captain spot because we've even raised his projection up. We're still not getting him in there, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't know. I mean, what's interesting is we have him projected at 11% owned in the captain spot at the moment, which is used based on like an industry that comes from an industry aggregate projection. So, I mean, I think some people are going to get there. I don't know if we're just maybe very low on him right now. That's something that could come up later. But based on what we're getting out of the cash optimals, what we're seeing out of this build, I would probably take the under on 11% captain ownership for Pittman. And because of that, it's probably a spot I want to get to.
Yeah, I agree. Can you go to the team stacks? I want to see is it still with the adjustments that we made? Okay. So we're 60% Denver 4-2s and almost no Indy. Can we? All right. So this is the other thing that I like to focus on too is this stack pool exposure. So we're running 1,500 builds here. Jordan's running 1,500 builds. 213 of the 1,500 were Indy 4-2s. Can we highlight those and just take a look at them? Because I'm curious to see what those look like. I imagine they're going to want to bring in some of those running backs on the Indy side, right?
Yeah.
So Matt
let's
Ryan
pull these over here. I think a lot of these we've already eliminated because they feature captains that we don't really want to use. That the Colts tight ends, it looks like, are actually pretty popular in these builds here. You've also got some of these builds here where it's like, Sutton or Jeudy with Russ Wilson at flex, and then 4 Colts flex players, which I think is kind of an interesting approach here. I
kind of like that. I mean, that's not terrible. Like some of these, so like if you want to get different, you want to get unique. Off the top of my head, it does seem like these Indy 4-2s are going to be very unique relative or in relation to the Broncos 4-2s. So that's Cortland Sutton, Russ, and then you got. I'm wondering if there's any double tight end builds because I mean we know Matt Ryan at least last week was peppering Mo Alley Cox, and then I think Granson, I think that's his name. I think he had 4 targets. So double tight end from the same team would be very unique. Not in the captain spot. I don't think we're going to see another I don't think this is a game where a tight end breaks the slate. I think it's going to come from Cortland Sutton, Pittman, or Jeudy. Or Hines. Those just seem like the likely captains for me. But in the flex spot, it might be a little bit too unique. Do you see any of Mo Alley Cox? And
let me see. Let me find Kylan Granson. I bet we've got a couple. I mean, they have the third guy. So we do have a few here. Yeah. So I mean, there's a few that are sneaking in. Russ Wilson, captain. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do that, I think you have to play like a Matt Ryan. That's like another thing too. If you're going that route, because you have to assume each scores a touchdown, and that's coming from Matt Ryan plus another Colts player. So I don't like what I like about SaberSim too is you'll see naturally it looks like Matt Ryan is in all of those builds.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of natural correlation that's built in. So that's interesting. I don't know how many. Colts 4-2s I'll get to. I'm leaning towards the more popular Denver 4-2s, but it does feel like the 4-2 path is it does seem more optimal than the 5-1s and the 3-3s. So that's kind of what I'm seeing tonight. Is there anything new that we should be discussing, just that you guys are working on coming out with in relation to NFL, in relation to showdown slates, or anything that should be on our minds?
No, I mean, the rules update still pretty fresh, still doing a lot of fine tuning there, cleaning some of that up, making that a little bit easier to use. We've been doing a ton of work behind the scenes on speeding up builds. So, I mean, if you guys saw it as we ran these ones here today, they absolutely zipped by. NFL Sunday morning as well, when you're building for a 12-game main slate, those should be quite a bit faster now. We've been doing those behind the scenes. We've got new features we're cooking up here. Nothing that I have ready to announce right this second, but especially NBA coming up on us here pretty quickly. So we've got some exciting stuff in the pipeline.
I had a question. So on Sunday, I was finalizing my builds and I was rerunning a couple things. And I think Captain posted this in our coordinator, our Saber Courts chat. It was like when I was running like 750 builds, it would want to run like 950 or like 1,000. Is that just kind of what's going on behind the scenes when we're seeing that? Is that anything that we should be, should we rerun it, or is that just Saber kind of doing its thing?
I would say you probably don't need to rerun it. I would probably just stop the build. I've seen that sometimes on my end as well, where I like ask for 500 and all of a sudden it's building me 750 or something like that. You can just click the red X and stop the build. I wouldn't worry about the build being bad or anything like that. It's probably just a normal build.
I just figured they're building me 250 extra, very optimal builds, Jordan. Yeah, I thought that's what was going on.
Yeah. The last one is the nuts. So you got, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, that makes sense. I thought maybe on my end, I just had to do like a hard refresh or something like that. Usually when issues come up, so sometimes it will be people will make the build, or at least for me, and like no builds will come up. Usually the problem for me has been like, I got to go and do a hard refresh, and that usually fixes everything. So hasn't actually happened to me in quite some time, but someone was asking. The other thing too is if you are having issues with SaberSim, in our Discord, we have a channel, a SaberSim specific channel that it just says SaberSim right there. Tag the SaberSim coordinators with your question, and they will get to you right away. So you guys do a very, very good job at that each and every week. Yeah. So Jordan, let me see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like it is. So do you have any kind of final thoughts, tonight? Do you want to take a look at the main slate? I mean, it looks like we have a little bit of time. So if we move on to the main slate, one thing that I'm considering is it's a Cooper Cup main slate. So I was doing the show yesterday, the tournament first look, and we saw like the Rams right now, they have no one else. It's Tyler Higbee, it's Cooper Cup. I'm thinking about just locking them in. 150, locking them in. Maybe going 70%. So one thing that I was doing, playing around with, just kind of as part of my process, doing research, looking at what those builds looked like, when you just lock in a player, go all in on a player like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good way to kind of test that. I think that's one of the cool things you can do here is just like lock a player in and then run the builds and then see, Mangone talks about doing this a lot on the streams that I've done with him, where he'll kind of just check and see like, hey, is this angle that I'm looking at viable? How many lineups can I build locking this guy in that I actually like? Does this actually kind of work? So yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I mean, the one thing with Cup in particular, he's expensive this week. I mean, you got to pay to go get him, but there should be quite a few value options out there to get. I'm interested, I think, mostly here to see how much Stafford we get if we lock Cup in, because I think SaberSim with the correlations is going to want to build a lot of Ram stacks around that.
Well, what's crazy is I think when I first ran it, I was getting a bunch of Buccaneer stacks because Tom Brady's cheap. So yeah, so I was getting a lot of Tom Brady plus at least one receiver, and then Cooper Cup in there. But then I was also getting a lot of cheap running backs as well. So, which I'm not sure if I'm sold on the cheap running backs this week, but it's that build right there, kind of interesting. Tyler Higbee and Cooper Cup, and no Matt Stafford. So we had this discussion yesterday, and if you go and look at kind of the game script that played out, you wanted Tyler Higbee, you wanted Cooper Cup in your build, but Matt Stafford with them was suboptimal because there was no touchdowns. It was all targets and it was all receptions and then volume through the receiving yards that they obtained. It's a function of how that offense is right now, which is interesting. It's just Allen Robinson can't get open. He's just and Matt Stafford's not looking his way at all. He's looking at two people, and that's it. And I think it's going to be a very similar script this week as well. So how I'm like running it is I really like the Rams this week. I don't need Stafford in those doubles. I'm definitely going to want some Stafford in those doubles, but I kind of like the texture right there. How Tom Brady 6K against a soft Atlanta defense. I don't know. It does seem like the popular route this week, but that's something I'm kind of looking at. But my main point going through this is just how cool of a tool it is to use, where you can play around with that. You can run different test builds and just see kind of how those builds look. So that's something I typically do at least once or twice every day, just kind of look and playing around with different build roster constructions, different stacks that I'm looking at. So yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was looking at this and I think, a lot of times people will look at this secondary 2-stack Higbee and Kupp and just think immediately, oh, I don't want that because these guys are negatively correlated. And I think one thing that's important to do here is to go one step further and kind of look a little bit deeper at the situation and see, in this particular situation, we pull up Kupp's correlations. You can see he is negatively correlated to Higbee, but it is just like negative 0.03. That's not a very strong relationship. And Tyler Higbee is by far the best value play at tight end this week in a very tight end weak field. And
he's going to be mega chalk.
Yeah, going to be very mega chalky and just like a very good value play overall. So I think, it's not as if, I don't think trying to approach it and say, every time you have two players from the same team without the quarterback, that lineup is not viable. Because in this case, I think to me, you'd have to make a decision on if you're willing to eat that ownership. But I think the value of Higbee at the tight end spot outweighs the negative correlation he has to Kupp in this build. So looking at those correlations, looking at how each player projects, looking at their ownership, I think sometimes can tell a little bit more of a deeper story on what's going on there.
Yeah. One last tidbit too. I know, Tyler Higbee going to be popular. Some of these Bucks players are going to be popular. Go back to, going back and looking at Hoops exposure, something I did last week. He was right in line with the field on a lot of chalk plays. Jamal Williams, I think he was maybe 5% over the field. So in NFL, some of these plays where they are just good plays, projections like them, the industry likes them. You don't have to fade them just because they're going to be chalk. I think that's a bad thing to do naturally. It's fine being in line with the field. Like you don't have to like plant the flag too and just get way overweight. You can definitely do that. I'm a fan of doing that too. But being in line with the field on some of these plays, I think it's fine because there's always going to be ways to get different.
Yep.
So that's kind of my last tidbit there. So if we go down this path of going through the main slate, we could be here for a while. So Jordan, any kind of final thoughts, main slate, showdown, any final thoughts, people just on SaberSim stuff coming up, anything like that?
No. I think we're on kind of a similar angle for tonight's slate. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be fun. I would say, stay tuned. We've been doing football here for a couple weeks. We've got NBA coming in really hot here, like 2 weeks away now, week and a half almost. So really looking forward to that. I think it should be fun to start talking a little bit of basketball here on these streams as we move forward too.
So all right, Six, you're not all right. So the chat, you're not invisible. We appreciate you, but there's been like 9 different messages in there and I don't see like a question. I see all statements. So if you can type your question in really fast, we can get to it. But I don't know, Jordan, if you have the chat up, if you see his question, but I'm not really seeing one. Boone Captain is thin, but anything that's not a question. Come on, Six. I don't see this. Okay. Can you show us some of your favorite rules to set and how to configure them in SaberSim with the new control aspect? Thanks. That's a good question there.
So I'll go ahead. I guess let me get back to week 5 here. I'm going to go first, and I don't think this is going to be a satisfying answer. For NFL Showdown, I'm not going to set almost any rules, virtually at all, any week. The main reason why is because I'm going to rely on the sims to build the constructions that make sense for that individual lineup. And as AP mentioned, I do a lot of my editing to select different optimals after the build so I can get my lineups the way I like that way. I don't want to introduce too much bias with my personal rules into the sims. And that's very specific to Showdown. I mean, I think, AP, feel free to chime in. I think some of the rules we set here for today's slate make a lot of sense for the angle that we're trying to attack with this game script. No more than one defense, no more than one running back in the game. So I would say match your rules to the script that you're trying to target. But for me personally, it's not something that I really do that much for NFL Showdown. And if you don't have a sense of what rules you want to make yourself based on your game script, I would say probably don't make any at all.
Yeah, for me, it's a slate by slate type of thing. It's a team by team, situation type of thing. The one I can think about is the Bengals and Jamar Chase, like looking at two receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, two guys that are going to project very well. And due to them projecting well, they're going to naturally fit into a lot of builds together. However, when you look at the dynamics of that team, very rarely do those two players go off on the same night. So like thinking back to that game with the Bengals, while I like Joey B, I wanted him with one of Chase or T. Higgins. So I created a rule that just didn't allow them to be in the same build. So, but tonight, like I think it's more so I don't want double defensive builds. I might even limit it to or limit my builds to having one kicker. It's a slate by slate thing. It's a feel type thing for me. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. And that's kind of my style with that.
Yeah. And are you putting in your actual groups in the article that you've been writing, but on your end?
Yeah. So in a lot of times I don't, like for Showdown, I'll just let I'm kind of like you there too, or I'll eliminate a lot of players. Like last Monday night was easy because I knew who I was very high on. I knew I was fading Allen Robinson. I knew I was fading both running backs. So I didn't even have to create a rule. I eliminated them. And right. I knew I was under on Matt Stafford. I didn't eliminate him, but I bumped his projection down. I knew I was high on Higbee. I knew I was locking in Kupp at the captain spot. So tonight, tougher. Like there are definitely many options out there that could land, many plays that could project or end up being optimal at the captain spot. It's just a function of how this game is going to play out. My opinion is the playmakers that we talked about. I could definitely be wrong, but I just think the game scripts that I'm thinking about playing out, those are the four guys that I see as being most likely to fall into that captain spot. So that's how I'll narrow down my pool. So, and I like, I like to play with a little bit more bias. You like to open things up a little bit, and there's no right or wrong reason to it, and especially on a slate like tonight's that could be very, very volatile. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think we could potentially see a solo Millie shipper tonight with how many players are in play. So that's not the script I'm running, so I hope we don't. I mean, it would be cool if we did, but I'm playing on the fact that I don't think we will. I think it will be one of these key guys in the captain spot, but that's how I'm playing it. So but I do think it could be a night where we see a solo Millie shipper. Do you have any thoughts on that too, just when you think about this game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you nailed it. I mean, we didn't even we spent a lot of time talking about the running backs for each team, which is one discussion. I mean, I think both teams, we kind of hinted on it, but both teams have a really interesting tight end situation as well. Like there are probably 3 viable tight ends for each team, like that will be on the field. It's Showdown, right? I mean, you're asking for them to catch a touchdown and get 2 receptions or 20 yards for some of these guys down here. I mean, there are so many lineup combinations here tonight that I would not be surprised for a solo Millie on tonight's slate, which makes it a pretty exciting slate. So,
yeah, and so we're getting this is something Simon and I were talking about. So yeah, Patrick Surtain, or they're going to be Ronald Darby. They're going to be all over Pittman for sure. But without that without PJ Locke there, I'm telling you, I will always give the advantage to a stud, talented receiver like Michael Pittman. In a one-on-one matchup, they're gonna Matt Ryan's definitely gonna look that way one-on-one. You don't have that the quarterback of that defense arguably in their safety there, to help out from a pass standpoint. So I am personally not fading Michael Pittman just due to like having a tough matchup at all. If their defense was complete and they didn't have injuries going on, sure, I would be a little bit lower on him. But I do think you bring up a good point with the tight ends, and we hit on that. The multiple tight end sets that the Colts like to run. I could see Mo Alley Cox, Grayson or Granson. I keep saying one of them.
I think it's Granson. Yeah. Well, and Jelani Woods caught 2 touchdowns like 2 weeks ago as well. I mean, he'll be on the field. I think he'll at least get some routes in the red zone. So, I mean, there's an opportunity there.
Yeah. So if you want to get different, but like, say that Granson has the breakout game. Say he has the Mo Alley Cox game from last week. That's how you could win $1 million. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but if you want to get different tonight and, maybe you got some crowns to use, I mean, you could definitely do that. There's definitely worse plays out there. So I think it's with the tight ends, it's going to be really interesting. And I might have to go back and look at these Denver tight ends. I just know they've been a complete disaster. And that's why we have the Print Factory show coming up later today. JSU, BigT, Tambo, 3 of the best in the industry. They're going to break it all down for us. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be making some adjustments. I don't have my final thoughts finalized right now. That would be idiotic. That would be absolutely idiotic. Of course, I'm going to listen to those guys and I'm going to adjust as well. So I have my script that I really like right now. And yeah, I'm definitely going to stick with it, but I want to see what those guys have to say. And sure, I'll be making some adjustments. It is a premium show. So make sure if you're a member, get in there and check that show out. But we are Jordan. We're closing in on my lunchtime over here. I'm gonna be eating my arm off here soon. Do you have any final thoughts? And then we will get out of here. I think we don't have. Well, okay, hold on. Tim has one question, real quick, and then we'll get out of here. When running multiple builds in SaberSim, is there a way to select lineups you prefer in groups and group those lineups together in one spot?
Not yet. That's
not
coming.
Yet. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's coming.
So
okay.
Right now there's not, it makes it really easy to take lineups from a build and put them into a contest, but there's no way to like combine lineups from different builds into a lineup set. That is something we're working on. That gets asked all the time. I know people are really looking forward to something like that. So that's in the works.
Yeah. One way to do that, or this is more of a main slate thing. Let's just say I love a Brady stack or whatever. So you could run one subset of builds, lock Brady in, and then run your builds and then, copy and paste them to your CSV file, then go run your, maybe it's Patrick Mahomes, stack or whatever. So a little bit more manual, but there are ways to do it.
Yep. If you want to get your hands dirty in the CSV, you can do that. No way to do that with the entry editor. So last final thought I have, I promise, and then I'll let you go eat your lunch. I would say keep an eye on Philip Lindsay's projection throughout the day. We are like a coach quote saying he's the starter away from a ridiculous projection on him where he's like 400 at the flex, 600 at the captain. And like, even if he's projected for 10 points or 9 points, he's going to be, like 25 in the value column. I think the ownership could get out of control if he projects that well later today. So definitely keep an eye on that. I think there have been some whispers here, like from the beat reporters this morning, that he's going to be the primary guy on the ground. That is a situation I really want to watch as we get closer to lock.
And the crazy thing about that is we've seen Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the game, if not the best, struggle behind this line. Put up, a 20 run. I don't have the exact number, but didn't he have 20 rush attempts and like 53 yards or something like that, or under something like very low? And if you factor that in, I mean, that's, unless you're getting the box, that is an absolute bust play. And projections are going to adjust. And he's going to end up being, if that happens, he's going to end up being one of the most popular plays on the slate. And that is the type of scenario that could lead us to seeing a solo Millie shipper tonight. If you get different, if you pivot and play one of those cheap tight ends over him, or cheap receivers, Alec Pierce, there's so many of them. That's how you could be different if a chalk play like that busts tonight. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun, man. I think it's going to be a fun showdown slate tonight. If you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, that red button in the corner there helps us out a lot over here at Run Pure Sports. We'll have all the content up for tonight's game. We got the Showdown playbook, all the cores from our team. We have the Print Factory with JSU, BigT, Tambo coming up later today. That is a premium show. Make sure you catch it. We will be back next week to talk maybe, I don't know what games next week, but we'll talk either Showdown or Main Slate. Again, if you have any questions regarding SaberSim, never hesitate to shoot me a DM, shoot Jordan a DM, or if there's anything that you want us to cover on these shows, send us a message. Let us know. I'm AP. That's Jordan. Simon, get us out of here.